Blairing Out Show.
This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show backstage at Cornerstone 07 with Andrew Schwab of Project 86. Andrew, how you doing today, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
What do you love about playing Cornerstone?
Cornerstone's always a really good collection of bands, honestly. Like, there's good music and there's enough music for different tastes, you know what I mean? A lot of heavy music, but, you know, a lot of stuff like Joy Electric just plays electronica, so that's pretty cool. And this particular Cornerstone is in Orange County, so that's where our band's from. So it's just, you know, our hometown crowd, and it's right around the corner for us. So
now, are you a Newport Beach guy, or are you Orange County?
Kind of all over. The band's from all over. I've lived in a lot of places in Orange County. I currently live in Irvine.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Cool. How do you like it there?
Oh, it's great, man. It's great. You can't beat the weather in Orange County.
You emote a lot of anger. Where does that anger come from?
Man, I don't know. Sometimes people say that there's a lot of aggression in the music. Other people say there's a lot of passion or a lot of energy. I think that our songs just kind of relate to anyone who feels like they have something buried deeply inside of them that needs to come out. And maybe it can't come out in any other way, but in connecting to the music, you know what I mean? That's kind of how we feel and how I feel, you know, when we perform it or when we record it or when we write it, you know, these are things that I think or feel, you know, deeply that maybe I don't have a better platform to express them in.
How did Project 86 come together as a band?
Well, we've been a band for 11 years, and we started in '96, believe it or not, and mutual friends of friends. We met going to hardcore shows in Orange County, bands like Unbroken and Strife, and you know, a lot of the '90s, you know, metal and hardcore bands that, you know, West Coast, a lot of that stuff. But I mean, you know, we would go to Sick of It All shows too, and you know, Snapcase, and we were just into that scene, and we all met sort of through mutual friends.
What inspired the name Project 86?
I think it just had a ring to it. You know, when it rolls off your tongue, it sounds like you're saying something that means something. I mean, the number 86 is like a reference to, you know, being rejected or separated, meaning, you know, we're going to stick to our guns despite potential opposition or rejection. We're just going to be who we are.
Rival factions. How'd you come up with that title?
We just honestly made a long list of titles that we really liked and just voted on them. Basically, we felt like that one had a ring of confrontation to it, but also sort of was open to like a couple different impressions or interpretations. You know, we have kind of our take on the album title, but if you listen to the album, there's a few different themes lyrically, and they're all dealing with the idea of separation and confrontation, and you know, basically facing, you know, difficult situations in life with courage.
How do you feel that Rival Factions is a departure for the band?
I think sonically it's definitely our most melodic record to date. It's the first time that we've featured keyboards as an instrument, as a fifth layer to the record rather than just a highlight here or there. Like on every song there's a prominent keyboard section. You know, we were pulling from a lot of different influences this time around, a lot of, you know, moody music and early 80s goth and things like that, you know, so, you know, vocally speaking as well, you know, I'm trying to do a lot of different things besides just yelling, you know, so it was fun in that sense.
How was technology a factor in the songwriting process? Because the way these songs were written for this album is unique and different than anything you've done before.
Well, I mean, we took advantage of MP3 and being, you know, we were in different places of the world, basically. One of our guys was in Europe, one of our guys was in Seattle, and then, you know, I was in Orange County, and, you know, we never really came together to write the record. In fact, we kind of chose to be in separate places so we would each have the responsibility of writing songs ourselves. So in that sense, you know, we were sending files back and forth, you know, but we ended up with a lot more material that way. And it was an interesting way to do it because it forced each of us to, you know, again, shoulder the responsibility of the entire record. So we had a lot more songs to choose from this time around. That was great.
What does the word morals mean to you?
Morals. Sort of a general term for standards that human beings would have in terms of the way they treat one another. And and how they sort of transact social dynamics, I guess.
How does Christianity play a part in your music?
You know, that's an interesting question, and you know, I have my own opinions about this that are a little different, I think, than most that you would ask. I don't think there's a such thing as a Christian musician or a Christian artist or a Christian painter or, you know, a Christian band. I don't think there should be, because I think, you know, no matter what your beliefs are, you know, I think that is sort of an undergirding. It's a lens through which you view everything. So I have the freedom to write about whatever I want to write about, and it's not always about spiritual topics, and it's not always about something that's necessarily edifying to the Christian or evangelical to the person who's not a Christian. I choose to write about topics that are heavy on my heart, spiritual and unspiritual, and my beliefs are a foundation from which, you know, I practice my arts. You know what I mean? But they're not always necessarily overtly represented, because I don't feel like the creative medium is the medium to preach at people. It's to provoke thought and to ask questions and to evoke discussion. So
now,
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, have those views faced any resistance in this industry?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, anytime you have God or Christianity or Christian band or Christian rock attached to what you're doing, especially if you're playing heavy music, you know, there's always going to be like a line drawn. You know, there's always going to be a fence, and you know, to the you know, the mainstream Christian audience, you're not Christian enough, and to the, you know, the just regular audience, you know, they don't want anything to do with it because it has God, you know, stamped on it. The thing that I like about the opportunity that we have is to change people's perspectives.
How do you decline temptation on the road?
Doing this for a living is very similar to doing other things for a living, where there's a routine every single day. And that's part of the drag of having a job and having to work for a living, you know, and that's what everybody has to do in this world. Everybody has to work in some form, even famous people, you know. Not that we're famous, but I think the reward and the sort of thing that keeps me spiritually balanced is that routine a little bit. In the regimen of waking up every day and feeling purpose. Okay, I'm going to wake up today and I get to do this for a living. I get to wake up and be in a new town and talk to a few hundred kids, you know, with a microphone and scream at strangers or whatever you want to call it. And there is some lasting sort of impression that is made there beyond just we rock this crowd. And I think, you know, the regimen of being able to experience that every day keeps you balanced and focused and free from straying the course.
What are your favorite songs on the record?
Man, it changes. Right now, I would say it's tracks 2 and 3. It's Put Your Lips to the TV and The Forces of Radio. I've dropped a Viper into the rhythm section. Put Your Lips to the TV is basically about growing up in a small town, which is I did. I grew up in a small town back east. And just being around narrow-minded people who tell you that you can't have a dream or a vision that extends beyond their imagination. And so it's really a song for anyone who's ever been told they can't do something.
In the past 11 years of being in Project 86, what has been your proudest moment?
It depends on what I'm thinking about at the time, I guess, because there's been a lot. Just from like playing a show perspective, we headlined a show at the House of Blues on Sunset in Hollywood. Sold it out.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was a couple years ago. You know, just that was a great achievement. Honestly, the most rewarding thing about doing this isn't the things that take place in the limelight or on the stage. It's more talking to that kid at your show or getting that email that just communicates that you did something that meant something in their life, in their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That extends beyond just I like your song. You know, and that's why we started doing this in the first place.
It's great that you're still in touch with wanting to touch people. It does get a little depressing when you put work out there and you get nothing back also.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like, why am I doing this? You know, what's the point?
Usually, you know, I found that the artists that are in touch with their own passions and are willing to be vulnerable in their music and to go a little bit deeper than the average are the ones that build those kind of bridges.
What's next for Project 86?
We're gonna, you know, destroy Cornerstone tonight and leave some carnage in our wake, and continue playing shows throughout the fall. We have an EP we're going to be releasing that'll contain some B-sides, a cover song or two, a couple remixes. We're pretty excited about that because it's all different for us. That will be right around the holidays.
Nice.
And then just continue playing and doing what we do, what we love to do, basically.
All right, well, Andrew Schwab, it's been great having you on the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show. Blairing Out with Eric Blair with Andrew Schwab from Project 86, signing off.